Captain Jake Morrison stared at the star map floating in front of him. The bridge of the UES Silent Thunder was quiet, except for the soft hum of engines. His ship moved through space like a ghost, invisible to most sensors. That was the point. The Silent Thunder did not exist in any official records. No one was supposed to know about it. "Captain, we're getting something strange," said Lieutenant Amy Wells from her station. She was young but smart, with quick eyes that missed nothing. Multiple signals from the mining stations in Sector 7. Jake walked over to her station. The Silent Thunder had been watching Dominion Empire ships for 3 months now. The Empire controlled most of this part of space. They had huge warships and thought they owned everything. Humans were supposed to stay in their small corner of the galaxy. But Jake and his crew had other ideas. What kind of signals? Jake asked. Amy's. Fingers moved over her controls. "That's the weird part, sir. The signals just stopped. All at once. No distress calls, no explosions, nothing. The stations just went dark." Corporal Steve Harper looked up from his engineering station. He was a big man with rough hands that could fix anything. "Could be equipment failure," he said. "Those Dominion mining rigs break down all the time." "Not all of them at once," said Sergeant Lisa Grant from Communications. She had been listening to enemy radio traffic for hours. "I'm picking up panic from their patrol ships. They're scared about something." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In his 10 years of space combat, he had learned to trust that feeling. Something was very wrong here. "Steve, take us closer to Sector 7. But keep us invisible," Jake ordered. The Silent Thunder moved forward through the darkness. It was not a big ship, only 47 people on board. But it packed more advanced technology than ships 10 times its size. The stealth systems made it harder to see than a shadow. The weapons could punch holes through battle cruisers. And the crew was the best humanity had to offer. "Captain," Amy called out, "I'm seeing something on long-range sensors. Debris field where mining station Alpha 7 used to be." Jake gripped the rail next to her station. "Survivors? Scanning now." Amy worked her controls with quick movements. "Wait, I'm getting life. Signs, small group, maybe 6 people. They're in an escape pod. Can we get them without being seen?" Jake asked. Danny Rodriguez spoke up from the intelligence station. He was quiet most of the time, but he knew more about enemy movements than this. "Anyone. No Dominion ships in the area, sir. We should be clear." Jake made his decision. Bring them aboard. But keep weapons ready. This could be a trap. 20 minutes later, 6 Dominion miners sat in the Silent Thunder's small medical bay. They looked scared and confused. Dr. Kelly Brooks, the ship's medic, had checked them over. No serious injuries, just shock and fear. Jake entered the medical bay with Amy and Danny. The miners looked up at him with wide eyes. They had never seen humans this close before. Most people in the Empire thought humans were weak and primitive. "I am Captain Morrison," Jake said slowly. The universal translator would help them understand. "You are safe now. Can you tell us? What happened to your station?" The oldest miner, a blue-skinned alien with 4 arms, started to shake. "They came from nowhere," he whispered. "No ships on sensors, no warning. Just suddenly they were there." "Who was there?" Amy asked. "The silent ones," another miner said. "They moved like ghosts. Our weapons did nothing. They went right through our shields like they were not there." Danny leaned forward. "What did they look like?" "Dark, flowing, like living shadow," the first miner said. "They did not speak. They just took everything. Drained our power, took our equipment, then left." Jake exchanged looks with his officers. This did not sound like any enemy they knew about. "Did they hurt anyone?" Dr. Brooks asked. "They put everyone to sleep first," the miner said. "Some kind of gas or energy field. When we woke up, everything was gone. The whole station was just empty metal." Steve Harper had been listening from the doorway. "Captain, could I talk to you outside?" In the corridor, Steve pulled out a small device. "I've been scanning the debris field. There's an energy signature I've never seen before. Not Dominion technology. Not human either. What are you thinking?" Jake asked. "Something new is out here," Steve said. "Something that can take apart a whole mining station without leaving. Normal battle damage. And it's moving fast." Jake felt that cold feeling again, stronger this time. "How many stations have gone missing?" Lisa's voice came over the ship's communication system. "Captain, I'm monitoring Dominion emergency channels. At least 12 mining operations have gone dark in the last week. The Empire is starting to panic." Jake walked back to the bridge with his officers. The star map showed the missing stations spread across a wide area. But there was a pattern. Whatever was doing this was moving toward the main Dominion worlds. "Amy, plot a course to the next likely target," Jake ordered. "We need to see this for ourselves." "Sir," Danny said quietly, "if we get involved, we blow our cover. The silent thunder will be exposed." Jake stared at the map. His orders were clear. Stay hidden, gather intelligence, do not engage the enemy. But something was hunting in Dominion space, and it was getting stronger with each attack. "Sometimes you have to break the rules to do what's right," Jake said finally. "Set course for mining station, Gamma 4, best speed." As the silent thunder moved through space toward unknown danger, Jake could not shake the feeling that everything was about to change. They were no longer just watching a war between humans and the Empire. Something else was out there in the dark, something that might be more dangerous than either side had ever imagined. The hunt was about to begin. The silent thunder reached mining station Gamma 4 just as the attack began. Jake Morrison watched through the main view screen as shadows moved through space. They were not ships in any normal sense. They looked like pieces of living darkness that flowed and shifted as they moved. "My God," Amy Wells whispered from her station. "What are those things?" "Unknown contacts," Steve Harper reported from engineering. "They're not showing up properly on sensors. It's like they're only half there." Jake watched as the shadow ships surrounded the mining station. There was no communication, no demands for surrender. The dark vessels simply moved closer to the station, and then something incredible happened. They passed right through the station's shields, as if they were not there. "How is that possible?" Danny Rodriguez asked. "I don't know," Jake said. "But we're about to find out. Amy, record everything. Steve, keep us hidden, but ready to move fast." The attack was unlike anything they had ever seen. The shadow ships did not fire weapons. Instead, they seemed to drain the power from everything around them. The mining station's lights went out section by section. The defensive turrets stopped moving. Even the emergency systems failed. "Captain," Lisa Grant called from communications. "I'm trying to pick up station transmissions, but there's nothing. It's like all their electronics just died." Small figures began moving from the shadow ships to the station. Through the view screen, Jake could see them floating through space without suits. They looked human-shaped, but moved in ways that seemed wrong, like they were swimming through the air instead of walking. "Boarding parties," Amy said. "But how are they surviving in vacuum?" "I don't think they need air," Dr. Kelly Brooks said. From her station, she had come to the bridge to watch. "Look at how they move. Those aren't living beings as we understand them." The boarding went quickly. Within an hour, the strange figures had returned to their ships. They brought with them large pieces of equipment and what looked like storage containers. The shadow ships then moved away from the now-dead station and simply vanished. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. Did they jump to hyperspace? Jake asked. No, sir, Steve said, checking his instruments. They just disappeared. No energy signature, no drive activation. They're just not there anymore. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Take us to that station. We need to see what they left behind. The silent thunder moved carefully toward the dark mining station. Steve's sensors showed no life. Signs and no power readings. It was like looking at a ghost ship floating in space. Launching probe, Amy announced. A small scout drone flew from the silent thunder toward the station. Its cameras sent back images that made everyone on the bridge fall silent. The station was completely empty. Not damaged, not destroyed, just empty. Every piece of equipment was gone. Every computer, every tool, every bit of useful technology had been taken. Even the food processors and water recyclers were missing. What remained was just empty metal rooms. They stripped it clean, Steve said in amazement. Took everything that could be useful and left the shell. But where are the people? Dr. Brooks asked. The probe found the answer in the station's main habitation area. Hundreds of Dominion workers lay on the floors, all breathing but unconscious. They showed no signs of injury, just deep sleep. Some kind of stun weapon, Jake guessed. They put everyone to sleep before taking what they wanted. Danny was studying the probe's readings. Captain, I'm seeing something else. Energy traces. In the station's computer core. Someone accessed their databases. What kind of information would they want? Amy asked. Everything, Jake said grimly. Locations of other stations, shipping routes, defense codes. They're learning about us. Lisa suddenly looked up from her station with alarm. Captain, I'm picking up multiple contacts, big ones, coming this way fast. The view screen showed 3 Dominion cruisers dropping out of hyperspace. They were massive ships, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Jake knew. They had to move quickly. Take us back into the shadows, he ordered. Full stealth mode. But as the silent thunder began to move away, something unexpected happened. One of the shadow ships reappeared near the mining station. It had been waiting, watching to see who would come to investigate. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, Amy reported. It's just sitting there. Jake studied the dark shape on the screen. It was bigger than he had first thought, maybe twice the size of the silent thunder. Its surface seemed to move and flow like liquid metal. It knows we're here, he said quietly. As if responding to his words, the shadow ship began to move toward them. The Dominion cruisers saw it too, and opened fire with everything they had. Bright energy beams lanced out toward the dark vessel. The beams passed right through it without effect. Impossible, Steve breathed. Nothing can ignore that much firepower. The shadow ship moved among the Dominion cruisers like they were standing still. It touched each one briefly, and their lights began to go out just like the mining station. Within minutes, 3 of the Empire's most powerful warships were floating dead in space. We need to get out of here, Danny said. Right now. But Jake was thinking of something else. Lisa tried to send a communication to that ship. All frequencies, sir. Lisa looked confused. If they're intelligent enough to access computer databases, maybe they can understand us, Jake explained. Lisa worked her controls. Channel open, sir. Jake took a deep breath. Unknown vessel. This is Captain Morrison of the human ship Silent. Thunder. We wish to communicate. For long moments, nothing happened. Then the shadow ship stopped moving. It turned toward them, and Jake felt like something was studying his ship very carefully. A voice came through the speakers. It sounded like wind blowing through empty spaces. Humans. Small. New. Why do you hide in the spaces between? The bridge fell silent. First contact with an unknown alien species, and it was happening to them. We are explorers, Jake said carefully. We wish to understand. Why do you attack the stations? Attack? The voice seemed confused. We reclaim. We take back what was stolen. Stolen? Long ago we slept. When we wake, others live in our places, use our things. We take back what is ours. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. These beings thought they owned this entire region of space. How long had they been asleep? And how many more of them were there? Can we meet? Jake asked, to talk about this peacefully. The shadow ship moved closer to the silent thunder. Humans interest us. You are different from the Empire ones. You hide well. You watch without taking. We try to understand before we act, Jake said. Good. We will remember humans, but the Empire must return what is ours. All of it. With that, the shadow ship vanished again, leaving only empty space and 3 dead Dominion cruisers. Jake looked around at his crew. They all understood what had just happened. They had made contact with something ancient and powerful, something that considered the entire Dominion Empire to be trespassers. Set course for the edge of the sector, Jake ordered. We need to get word back to Earth. Everything just changed. 3 days later, Jake Morrison's worst fears came true. The shadow beings, who called themselves the Void Collective, launched their largest attack yet. 12 Dominion core worlds went dark at the same time. Billions of people simply fell asleep as their planet's defenses failed completely. Captain, incoming transmission from Dominion Command, Lisa Grant announced from her station. The communication was full of static and fear. Admiral Zextar's face appeared on the view screen. The proud Dominion leader looked shaken and desperate. Unknown human vessel, we know you are monitoring our channels. We need to talk. Jake had been expecting this. Put me through, Lisa. This is Captain Morrison. We're listening, Admiral. Our worlds are falling one by one, Zextar said without any of his usual arrogance. These shadow creatures ignore our most powerful weapons. We need information about them. Jake made a hard choice. We've had contact with them. They call themselves the Void Collective. They believe this entire region of space belongs to them. Impossible. The Empire has controlled these systems for 300 years. They were here first, Jake said simply. They've been sleeping for thousands of years. Now they're awake and they want their territory back. The transmission crackled with interference. Meet us at coordinates 77 Alpha. We must combine our knowledge if we are to survive. After the transmission ended, Jake turned to his crew. Opinions? It's obviously a trap, Danny Rodriguez said. The Empire has been trying to capture our ship for months. Maybe, Jake said. But if the Collective takes over all of Dominion space, human worlds will be next. We might not have a choice. Steve Harper had been working at his engineering station for hours, studying the energy readings from the Collective attacks. Captain, I think I found something. These shadow ships have a weakness. Everyone turned to look at him. What kind of weakness? Amy Wells asked. Their technology is designed to absorb and redirect energy, Steve explained. Laser weapons, plasma cannons, even nuclear explosions just feed their power systems. But I don't think they know how to handle old-fashioned kinetic weapons. You mean bullets? Jake asked. Railguns, mass drivers, anything that just throws. Heavy objects very fast, Steve said. Their energy absorption fields might not work against simple physics. Danny leaned forward. That's a big might, Steve. It's the only weakness I can find, Steve replied. Their ships are built to fight energy-based civilizations. But humans still use kinetic weapons on some of our ships. Jake thought about this. Most space combat used energy weapons because they were faster and more accurate. But human ships still carried railguns for close combat and asteroid mining. We have rail guns on the Silent Thunder, Amy pointed out, but only small ones. Small. Might be enough if we hit the right spot, Steve said. I've been analyzing their ship designs. They have what looks like central power cores. If we could hit one with a kinetic round ... we could test the theory, Jake said slowly. But it would mean revealing ourselves to both sides. An alarm sounded. On Lisa's station, Captain, emergency broadcast from the Dominion. Multiple collective ships are attacking Admiral Zextar's fleet right now. The view screen showed the battle from long-range sensors. 50 Dominion warships faced 20 shadow vessels. It should have been an easy victory for the Empire, but Jake watched as ship after ship went dark. The shadow ships moved through the battle like nothing could touch them. They're slaughtering them, Amy whispered. Jake made his decision. Plot intercept course. Maximum speed. Steve, load the railguns with solid slugs. We're going to test your theory. The Silent Thunder raced toward the battle. Jake knew he was risking everything. If Steve was wrong, they would die with the Dominion fleet. If he was right, they might have found the key to fighting the collective. Entering weapons range, Amy reported. Multiple shadow ships on approach. Target the smallest one, Jake ordered. Amy, I want a clean shot at what Steve thinks is their power core. Locked on, sir. Fire. The railgun sent a solid metal slug flying through space at incredible speed. Jake held his breath as the projectile reached the shadow ship. Instead of passing through harmlessly like energy weapons, the slug punched straight through the vessel's hull. The shadow ship flickered and became solid for a moment. Sparks flew from its surface, and it began to list to one side. Direct hit, Amy shouted. The ship is damaged. The other shadow ships immediately turned toward the Silent Thunder. Jake realized they had just made themselves the primary target. Evasive? Maneuvers, he ordered. Steve, can we modify the Dominion ship's weapons? Not from here, Steve said. But I can send them the frequency data. If they fire their kinetic weapons at the same frequency as our railgun. Do it. Lisa, open a channel to all Dominion ships. This is Morrison to all Empire vessels. Fire kinetic weapons only. Frequency 7.3 gigahertz. Energy weapons are useless. Some of the Dominion captains listened. Jake watched as railgun rounds began hitting the shadow ships. Each hit made the vessels flicker and become solid. Suddenly, the collective ships could be hurt, but the aliens adapted quickly. The shadow ships began moving differently, phasing in and out of normal space to avoid the kinetic rounds. What had been a potential victory was becoming a running battle. They're learning, Danny observed. Each time we hit one, the others get harder to target. A massive shadow ship appeared directly in front of the Silent Thunder. Jake could see movement on its surface as beings that looked like living darkness prepared to board his vessel. All hands, prepare to repel boarders, Jake announced over the ship's communication system, but the boarding never came. Instead, a voice filled the bridge. It was the same wind-like sound they had heard before, but now it carried anger. Humans, you wound us. You help the thieves who steal our worlds. We're trying to find a peaceful solution, Jake said. Your people and ours don't have to be enemies. Peace? The voice laughed, and it sounded like storms breaking. The Empire builds. On the bones of our civilization, they must be removed. All of them. What about the billions of innocent people living on those worlds? They will sleep. When we reclaim our worlds, they will be relocated. Those who resist will join the deep sleep. Jake realized the collective wasn't just taking back territory. They were planning to move or eliminate everyone who had settled in their space over the centuries. There has to be another way, Jake said. You are young, human. Your species is new to the stars. We have waited in darkness for 3,000 years while others lived in our light. No more waiting. The shadow ship began to move away, but its parting words chilled Jake to the bone. We remember humans now. You fight well for such small beings. When the Empire falls, we will speak again. Choose wisely which side you stand with. As the collective ships vanished from the battle zone, Jake looked around at his crew. They had proven the aliens could be hurt, but they had also learned something terrifying. The collective wasn't just reclaiming a few mining stations. They wanted to reshape the entire galaxy. Set course for human space, Jake ordered quietly. We need to warn Earth. This war is bigger than anyone imagined. Admiral Zexstar stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, staring at the communication screen that showed Captain Jake Morrison. 2 weeks had passed since the first joint battle against the Void Collective. Half of the Dominion Empire's core. Worlds were now under alien control, and Zexstar had done something no Dominion leader had ever done before. He had asked humans for help. Your kinetic weapon solution saved what remained of my fleet, Zexstar admitted. But the collective adapts faster than we can develop new tactics. Jake nodded from his position on the Silent Thunder's bridge. They've learned to phase their ships at random intervals. Our railguns can still hurt them, but hit rates are down to 20%. We need a new approach, said Amy Wells, who is monitoring collective movements across multiple star systems. They're not just taking territory anymore. They're studying us, learning how we fight. Steve Harper looked up from his engineering station. Captain, I've been working with Dominion technical teams on a new idea. What if we combine human and Empire technologies? Zexstar's expression showed surprise. Our weapon systems are completely different. Human technology is primitive compared to ours. Maybe that's an advantage, Steve said calmly. Your energy weapons are sophisticated, but the collective can absorb that energy. Our kinetic weapons are simple, but they work because the aliens never developed defenses against them. Danny Rodriguez had been studying intelligence reports from both sides. The collective has controlled 43 star systems now, but they're not moving randomly. There's a pattern to their expansion. Jake studied the star map Danny projected. They're heading for something specific. What's in this direction? The Vega Nebula, Zexstar said slowly. Ancient ruins there, older than the Empire. We always thought they were just dead cities. What if they're not dead? Amy suggested. What if they're dormant, like the collective was? Lisa Grant had been monitoring communication channels for days. Sir, I'm picking up massive energy readings from the nebula. Something big is waking up. Jake felt that familiar cold feeling in his stomach. How big? Structures the size of moons, Lisa reported. At least a dozen of them, all coming online at the same time. The implications hit everyone at once. The collective wasn't just reclaiming their old territory. They were waking up there. Main civilization centers, places that had been sleeping for thousands of years. We need to work together, Jake said finally. Human ships and Dominion vessels fighting as one fleet. Zexstar hesitated. My people have been enemies of humanity for generations. Many of my captains will refuse to take orders from humans. Then we don't give orders, Jake said. We make suggestions. We share information. We watch each other's backs. Dr. Kelly Brooks spoke up from her station. Captain, we've been studying the collective's stunning weapons. The gas or energy field. They use to put people to sleep. I think I can develop countermeasures. How long do you need? Jake asked. Give me access to Dominion medical databases and a week to run tests. Zexstar made a decision it would have been impossible a month earlier. You'll have everything you need, Doctor. The next week was the strangest in human history. Human engineers worked alongside Dominion technicians to modify weapon systems. Human doctors shared research with alien medical specialists. Soldiers who had been preparing to fight each other began training together. Steve Harper led a combined team that developed new tactics. "We've created hybrid weapon systems," he explained to a meeting of human and Dominion officers. "Dominion energy weapons that fire kinetic projectiles at variable frequencies. Will it work?" asked Commander Kate Wilson, captain of the human destroyer Bold Venture. "In theory," Steve said, "but we won't know until we test them in combat." That test came sooner than expected. Long-range sensors detected a massive collective fleet moving toward the border between human and Dominion space. This wasn't a raiding force. It was an invasion fleet designed to crush all resistance. 200 shadow ships, Amy reported from the Silent Thunder sensor station, supported by those moon-sized structures from the nebula. Jake looked at the combined human-Dominion fleet assembled around him. 30 human ships and 40 Dominion vessels, against an enemy force that had already proven nearly unstoppable. "All ships, this is Morrison," Jake broadcast to the fleet. "Remember, we're not just fighting for our territories anymore. If the collective wins here, they'll have enough resources to take over the entire galaxy." The battle began at long range. The hybrid weapons worked better than anyone had hoped. Kinetic rounds powered by Dominion energy systems punched through collective defenses with devastating effect. For the first time, the shadow ships began taking serious losses, but the aliens had surprises of their own. The moon-sized structures opened up, revealing weapons that could reach across entire star systems. Beams of pure darkness began striking the Allied fleet. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Steve reported as the Silent Thunder shook from a direct hit. Whatever that beam was, it didn't just damage us. It drained power from our backup systems. Human ship after human ship fell silent as the dark beams found their targets. But the Dominion vessels, with their different energy systems, proved more resistant. Soon the fleet was split into two groups, human ships trying to avoid the long-range weapons, while Dominion vessels pressed the attack. "We're losing," Danny observed quietly. Jake watched as another human destroyer went dark. And he had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. "Lisa, open a channel to the collective fleet." "Sir?" Lisa looked confused. "I want to talk to them again." The same wind-like voice answered. "Humans, you fight beside the thieves now? This disappoints us. We fight beside anyone who wants to find a peaceful solution," Jake said. "Your people have been asleep for thousands of years. The galaxy has changed. Nothing has changed. Our worlds remain ours. But billions of people have been born on those worlds," Jake argued. "People who never knew your civilization existed. Are you going to punish children for something their ancestors didn't even know they were doing?" For the first time, the collective voice hesitated. "The young ones, they are not thieves by choice." "Exactly. There has to be room for everyone. Your people are advanced enough to share space with others." Share? The concept seemed to puzzle the alien intelligence. "We are collective. We do not share. We are one or we are nothing." Jake realized he was dealing with a completely different way of thinking. The collective didn't understand individual choice or compromise because they were all connected to each other. "What if we could show you how sharing works?" Jake asked. "How different species can live together without destroying each other." The dark beams stopped firing. The collective fleet halted its advance. "Show us," the voice said simply. Jake looked. Around at his bridge crew, then at the mixed human-Dominion fleet, still fighting together despite their differences. "Look around you," he said. "Humans and Dominion forces, working as one fleet. A week ago, we were enemies. Now we're allies. If we can learn to cooperate, so can everyone else." The silence stretched for long minutes. Then the collective ships began to change, becoming more solid, less shadow-like. "We will consider this," the voice said finally. But the Empire must answer for building on sacred ground. Some crimes require justice. Then let's find justice that doesn't require genocide, Jake said. The collective fleet began to withdraw, but their parting message gave Jake hope. We will speak again, Human Morrison. Your words carry wisdom for such a young species. Perhaps there is another path forward. As the alien ships disappeared, Jake looked around at his crew and realized that everything had changed again. They were no longer just fighting a war. They were trying to build a peace that could reshape the galaxy. The meeting took place in neutral space, far from any star system. 3 ships floated in the darkness between galaxies. The Silent Thunder represented humanity. Admiral Zextar's flagship spoke for the Dominion Empire. And a single collective vessel, no longer shadow-like, but gleaming like liquid starlight, carried the voice of an ancient civilization. Jake Morrison sat at a round table that had been built specifically for this moment. Across from him sat Admiral Zextar, still proud, but no longer arrogant. The third chair remained empty, but a soft glow above it showed where the collective's consciousness focused its attention. We have studied your concept of sharing, the wind-like voice said. It is difficult for us to understand. We are one mind in many bodies. You are many minds in separate bodies. That's what makes it work, Jake explained. Because we're different, we can see solutions that others might miss. 3 weeks had passed since the last battle. During that time, teams from all 3 sides had been working together to find a way forward. The results were promising but fragile. Steve Harper entered the meeting room carrying a datapad. The technical analysis is complete, he announced. We can restore the collective's sacred sites without displacing current populations. Zextar looked skeptical. How is that possible? Dimensional folding, Steve said simply. The collective's own technology, updated with human and Dominion improvements. We can create space where none existed before. The collective's voice carried new interest. Explain this folding. Amy Wells activated a holographic display that showed a planet with cities on its surface. We take the original collective structures and fold them into a parallel dimensional space. Same location, different layer of reality. The current inhabitants never see the ancient cities, Danny Rodriguez added. But the collective can access their sacred sites whenever they want. Doctor, Kelly Brooks spoke up from her corner of the room. We've also solved the population problem. Instead of forced relocation, we're offering voluntary colonization programs. Some people want to explore new worlds. Others prefer to stay where they were born. Jake watched the empty chair carefully. The collective had been silent for several minutes, processing this information. This solution requires trust, the voice said finally. We must trust that you will honor the dimensional barriers. You must trust that we will not abuse access to the folded spaces. Trust has to start somewhere, Jake said. And it has to start with someone willing to take the first step. Admiral Zextar leaned forward. The Empire is prepared to provide resources for the Dimensional Folding Project. We have technology that could accelerate the process. And humanity will provide the engineering expertise, Jake added. Our people are good at building things that shouldn't be possible. The collective's response surprised everyone. We offer something in return. Knowledge. We have observed the galaxy for 3,000 years. We know threats that approach from the dark spaces between stars. Lisa Grant looked up from her communication station. What kind of threats? Devourers, the voice said simply. Creatures that consume entire civilizations. They come from the void between galaxies, drawn by the energy signatures of advanced technology. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. How long before they arrive? Perhaps 50 years. Perhaps 100. But they come, and when they arrive, no single species will be strong enough to resist them. The implication was clear. The Alliance Between humans, the Dominion, and the Collective wasn't just about solving current problems. It was about preparing for a future threat that could destroy everyone. "And we build something stronger," Jake said. "Not just an alliance, a true partnership." 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the new deep space station, Alpha. Through the viewports, he could see ships from a dozen different species working together on construction projects. Human engineers worked alongside Dominion technicians and Collective entities to build something unprecedented. The Dimensional Folding Project had been a complete success. Across 43 star systems, ancient Collective sites now existed. In parallel space, accessible to their builders while invisible to current inhabitants. Voluntary relocation had moved millions of people to new worlds, while billions more remained on their birth planets, unaware that they shared space with. Structures older than their civilizations. Amy Wells approached him carrying a status report. "The new Alliance fleet is coming together faster than expected," she said. "We have 60 ships from Earth, 80 from the Dominion, and 20 Collective vessels." "What about the other species?" Jake asked. 12 more civilizations have joined the Alliance in the past month," Amy reported. "The Centauri Republic, the Vegan Commonwealth, even the isolationist Rigel Confederacy. News about the Devourers is spreading." Steve Harper joined them at the viewport. "The new hybrid technologies are working better than anyone hoped. We're building ships that combine the best features of all our technologies." Jake nodded, but his attention was focused on a smaller ship docking at the station. It was the Silent Thunder, now officially listed in the Human Fleet Registry. His old crew had been promoted to train the new Alliance forces, but they still took the ship out on patrol missions. "Any regrets about leaving the Silent Thunder?" Amy asked. Jake considered the question. "Sometimes. But command of the Alliance. Fleet is where I need to be now." Danny Rodriguez's voice came over the station's communication system. "Admiral Morrison, incoming transmission from Earth. Fleet Command wants an update on Project Starwall." Jake smiled at his new title, Admiral Morrison. 6 months ago, he had been a captain of a ship that didn't officially exist. Now he commanded the largest military alliance in galactic history. "Tell them Starwall is ahead of schedule," Jake replied. "The defensive grid around the galactic core will be complete within 2 years." As he walked toward the command center, Jake reflected on how much had changed. The alliance between humans, the Dominion, and the Collective had grown into something none of them had imagined. More than just military cooperation, it was becoming a new form of galactic civilization. The Collective had taught them about ancient technologies and threats from beyond the galaxy. The Dominion had contributed industrial capacity and knowledge of large-scale organization. Humans had provided the crucial element that made it all work, the ability to see possibilities where others saw only problems. In the command center, Jake looked at the strategic display showing the entire galaxy. Red markers showed the projected approach routes of the Devourers. Blue markers indicated Alliance defense positions. Green markers marked the new colonies where different species were learning to live together. "Admiral," said Commander Kate Wilson, who now served as his chief of staff. "The Collective reports they've detected the first Devourer scout ships entering the galactic rim." Jake felt that familiar cold feeling, but this time it was mixed with confidence. "How long before the main force arrives?" 47 years, based on their movement patterns. "Then we have 47 years to get ready," Jake said. "Send word to all Alliance worlds. The real work begins now." As alerts went out across the galaxy, Jake thought about the journey that had brought him here. It had started with a mysterious attack on mining stations and a captain willing to break the rules to do what was right. It had led to first contact with an ancient civilization and the discovery that cooperation was stronger than conflict. The Silent Thunder had been designed to fight a war between humans and the Dominion Empire. Instead, it had helped create a peace that might save the galaxy. Sometimes the most important victories were the ones where nobody had to lose. The stars outside the station continued to shine, no longer marking the boundaries between hostile territories, but lighting the way toward a future where different species could work together to face any threat. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, ancient enemies approached, unaware that the galaxy they sought to devour had learned something they could never understand: the power of unity and diversity. The real test was still to come, but Jake Morrison and the crew of the Silent Thunder had given the galaxy something it had never had before: hope.